about units. I mentioned the decadal units, the ones, tens, hundreds, thousands, and so on, and the decimal units. We also have fraction units. My kind of sentence or my judgment about math books that I'm used to is that we don't teach kids normally fractions as a unit. That might be different in Czech, because I noticed the way it was pronounced in the curriculum for the 5th grade. Let me see. I can find that. Yeah, it says in 5th grade, recognition of fractions. And of course, that can be understood in different ways, but it could mean that you think also of fraction as a unit, like 1/3, which is a unit when you divide a whole into 3 different parts, not different, but equal parts, of course. And 1/4 is a unit when you divide a whole in 4 equal parts, and so on. And you can, well, actually, 4 halves and fourths, or 4 parts, and 8 parts, and 12 parts are those easy to make in the real life. When we speak about the 5th parts and 7th parts, it's not so easy to make them and to use them as a unit. But if the kids learn about these and use them as units for those that's easy to make, then they will transfer to all the others. It's not necessary to work with all these concrete materials forever. And it's no point of doing it once the children have automatized and got the points. So everything that I've demonstrated now may seem very simple for some of the children in 5th and 6th grade, and maybe it's not necessary for those. But in a class, there are typically also children who need this, but they don't need it either forever. They just need to get a point, and they need to get the understanding, not only the procedures, what they have to do. So those fraction units that I've listed here, and quite some others, are possible to work with as a unit. And we count them in the same way as we count ones and tens and hundreds and so on. And we have length units. And we also have weight units. And we have volume units. And they all, because of the type of units that we have in most of Europe, at least, England has been, or Great Britain has been exception in that, in having pounds and all these odd measures, while most of us have the decadic system also in our measure systems for length and weight and volume. And that is, of course, much easier for us and for the kids who are going to learn it. So I can refer to actually a kind of a bad example in the Norwegian practice, because the length units we often speak about, we don't often speak traditionally, not often speak about decimeter. We speak about meter and centimeter. So we speak about the centimeter as a unit and the meter as a unit. Several years ago, I'm not sure how it is now actually, but several years ago, this was used as an example and a kind of a concrete thing, but just one picture and one means of thinking using this only way of learning it. They used centimeters as hundredths and meters as ones And that's perfectly possible, and it's a good idea. As one of the examples that we use for association, so that the children can associate when it's 100ths, then or 1 centimeter is an example of 100ths if the meter is 1, the unit 1, and the unit centimeters, and the unit so and so. And maybe it's a good idea to speak about the unit when we speak about this, just to clear up the thoughts and make sure that we speak about what we want to speak about. I recognize that myself here. I'm sitting and talking. So that was used when it was about the hundreds in the decimal numbers. And then in the volume units, liters and deciliters, we speak often about deciliters, but we don't often speak about centiliters, at least if we don't that frequently mix drinks, then or take medicine that we need to, where we need to relate to centiliters. So in the same book, that was used as an example of tenths, 10 parts, and ones. A liter is a 1, a deciliter is a tenth. But actually, in the book I have in mind when I use this information, in the teacher guide, it said, don't use the terms hundreds and tenths at this point. Use centimeters and use deciliters. And what this caused in the kids was kind of a systematic misunderstanding. Because on one side of the comma was the whole liters, on the other side was the whole number of deciliters. And on one side of the comma was the whole number of meters, and on the other side, the whole number of centimeters. So what was the knowledge in the kids' mind was, okay, we have one thing on one side of the comma, and we had another thing on the other side of comma, and they were perceived as two kind of different number systems. At least they did not really get enough examples so that they could transfer and understand that a tenth is not a deciliter. Yes, it is a deciliter, but it could also be a lot of other things. Any time when a whole is divided in 10 equal parts, then we can speak about a tenth. And every time when a whole is divided into 100 equal parts, we can use it as a hundred, or we can call it a hundredths, 100 parts. In English, the name of these fractions are very similar to the words, the kind of the ordinal words, first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and so on. And that can be a little bit confusing for English speakers. But in our language, it is not like that, and maybe not either in the Czech language. Time units. Then we come to a much more complicated system when with the 60 number system when we speak about seconds and minutes, and the 12 number system when we speak about hours in day and night. And that's already this is maybe one reason why quite some children struggle with telling the time. And those children with ADHD very often struggles a little bit longer, at a little bit higher age than the rest of the kids. So I have actually, if you're interested, a little series in the end today about also this telling the time. And that has been very nice to do together with children of this age that we are talking about, struggle with learning how to tell the time. And when you are 11 or 12 years and you can't tell the time, of course, then it becomes embarrassing. And we have a lot of physical and chemical and so on, not systems of categories, actually, systems of units in different categories. And again, it's easy to speak about wholes and parts of wholes and relate it to real things. And actually this first, it's possible to do in kindergarten. It's possible to provide kindergarten kids with this knowledge that something is a whole and something is not a whole. It's just a part of it. That could be a part of everyday language, and that will be very helpful when these children arrive at an age in which is relevant to learn fractions and decimal number and percentages. If they haven't learned that, and that is not a part of their really knowledge, their flexible knowledge, okay, maybe we need to do it, even if the kids are maybe a bit too big, we think. Actually, I've done this with teacher students in Malawi in a very short course, more than 10 years ago, 11 years ago, around. And that was very interesting. And that was when I realized that when you give, when you use things that's possible to eat, and when eating them afterwards or immediately is a part of the situation, that is speaking to the emotions also with grown-up people. And of course, Malawi is a very poor country, but these people who were in this course, they were not the poorest, but still, it was a big issue for them to be able to eat these parts of and the different fractions of a carrot piece or whatever it was, a piece of bread, for example, in the carrot divided into fourths. Just a bit digression, is that an English word? I'm not sure. But it is something about when we work with these things, if we really recognize that this is something we need to do also with the 5th and 6th graders, just to have this in mind can help making these lessons interesting and fun, really fun. A whole bread and some parts of a bread, a whole orange and some parts and one part of the orange, and that's it's obvious to us, but not to our children. And such inference could be more complicated for kids with ADHD than with other kids, or with also, of course, more severe developmental problems. Which of those? Which of those is a part of a whole? Which of those and which of those? It doesn't have to be more simple than that, because here either it is a part of a whole or it is not. And look, here is the question with the 2 arrows. Look at that part, banana, and look at this piece of orange. Are they similar in some ways? Because they are similar in being fruits. My experience is that when I ask kids questions like this, they never answer first the simplest ones. And the simplest thing is that they could be equal in, but they answer the most difficult one, and they want to be the first because they want to answer this difficult thing that they really have recognized and noticed. They want to tell it, and when they tell it, they use their voice, they use these things, the executive functions in front of their brain, and which is in particular important for those children with ADHD to use. So to have them experience, have them telling each other, and it's not necessary to tell the teacher all the time, they can tell each other about this. The effect of the verbalization is the same, whether they speak to the teacher or they speak to another child. And it requires processes here. And all those processes that goes on here, they imply connections between brain cells. And when there has been a connection, that the connection is more likely to be established in another situation where one of those two are connections. I spoke more about this yesterday. I'm not going to say more about that now. But here as well, look at those more complicated now. It is possible to make these tasks more complicated, and we need to adapt to the age of the kids we work with. They are not very similar. It's not easy, and actually, I don't know in what situations a person spontaneously seeing this without the previous experience would really think of the similarity of being part of a whole and not a whole. And when if we ask the child or motivate the child for saying they are similar in being parts and similar in those words are kind of not a secret, but it has an effect, and this effect is situated here in the executive function. Yeah, similar in other respects, and who knows, there might be other similarities that somebody can detect. Fine, that's great. Both things have a number of similarities. So let's look at the halves or two part. It's also possible to say if that's easier for a child, because it is when we divide a whole in two equal parts. Point to the half of a bread. Point to the half of an orange. Point to the half of an apple. And finally, look at those two. And I gave you just these few examples to indicate what kind of task we can use if that's necessary for this teaching tasks for the kids. So look at this and this, an apple piece and a piece of cake, just a piece of cake. How are they similar? They are similar in being parts of. Actually, this if we go back to the half, the two parts or the halves, and we find the symbol for them. And actually, I should have put something across these because the symbol for a half is all this. And that should the children should experience it as a whole, the half symbol. And later, of course, it's not wrong what stands there, but it's not necessary to kind of interrupt the understanding of the half fraction as a symbol of all those halves that we have experienced, and also the word half or half part or two part. It's possible to interchange between those. Of course, the explanation and to be able to make the explanation is also a point when we teach the kids. But excuse me for this. I have put it on in a way that disturbed the speaker. Yeah, the microphone, I mean. So the same with the fourth parts. When we put something in 4 equal parts, we make fourths or 4 parts. And we must try to use the language in ways that's most possible helpful for the children and their learning. And look here, and of course it's stupid to have this orange color on the 4th path, because when I ask, look at those 2 with the arrows on them, how are they similar? There are at least 2 similarities. They have an orange color, and they are a 4th path of a whole of something. So this pronunciation of similarities is a very important part as well of the learning, because that's at the bottom of the inferences and the transfer. And the transfer we are always striving for in the children's brain, because that makes them independent in their learning and in their thinking. Once they can transfer, they have no limits, actually. They can transfer to whatever is relevant. 10th part. No, I'm going to skip this picture, actually. And I'm going to tell about, oh, actually, there is a break.